Hey guys, R4GE VipeRzZ here, and welcome back to episode 8 of my Python 3 series. So in this episode, we're going to be going over exception handling. So exception handling can allow your program to respond to an error in the code. So for example, if you ask the user to input a number, and instead of inputting a number they input a letter, that could cause an error to occur, but thankfully with exception handling, we can catch that error, and we can make a section of code run in response to the error. Now to demonstrate this, we're first going to create a variable called number, and we're going to set it equal to an input, and in that input we're going to ask the user to please enter a number, like so. And we need to tell Python that this input is an integer, so we're going to put int and then open bracket, and then we're going to put a close bracket on the end. So now if we save the code and we run it, as you can see, it asks us to input a number, but if we input, say, a letter such as H instead, and we press enter, as you can see, a value error occurs. Now, thankfully, a value error is a type of error that we can catch with exception handling. So to catch a value error, we're going to be using a try and except. So to create a try and except, you just first need to type try, and then colon, and then you want to press enter, and this is where you need to type the code that you want to monitor. So we want to monitor our input, so I will just copy the code and I will paste it into the try and I will remove it from the top. And now we've typed out the code that we want to monitor, we can now add the except to the try and except. So to do that, we're going to come down the line and we're going to remove the indent, and then we're going to type except. And you could leave it at a general except, and that would mean that Python would catch any errors at all that occur with the input. But that could cause you to miss an error when you're troubleshooting your code, so it's best to specify the error that you want to catch. So we want to catch a value error. And then we're going to close the except with a colon, and then we're going to press enter, and here is where you type the code that you want to run when the exception is caught. So we're just going to print, please enter a number and not a letter. So if we save this code and we run it, this time if we input H and we press enter, as you can see it tells us to please enter a number and not a letter. Now that's because it comes into the try and it monitors the input and it detects that there is a value error. So the exception here catches the value error, and once it catches it, it then runs a code in the exception here. But at the minute, once it's printed please enter a number and not a letter, it doesn't ask the user to input their number again. So to solve that problem, we're going to put this try and except inside of a while loop. So before we create the while loop, we're first going to create a variable called count, and we're going to set that equal to false. Now you don't have to name the variable count, you can name it whatever you want, and you don't have to set it to false, you could set it to true if you wanted, but that would change how you code your while loop. But anyway, we're going to use a variable called count and we're going to set it equal to false. And then just above the try and except, we're going to create a while loop. So we're going to type while, then space, and then while count equals false, and then we're going to end that with a colon. So whilst count equals false, we want to run the try and except. So now we need to indent our try and except one, so we're going to highlight it all, and then we're going to press the tab key to indent it one. So now at the minute, this try and except would constantly run forever, because at no point does the count change from false to true. So to fix that, inside the try, we're going to change count to true. And then in the value exception area, we're going to set count equal to false. So if we save this code and we run it, now if we enter a letter instead of a number, it asks us to please enter a number and not a letter, and then it asks us to re-enter a number. Now, that occurs because when Python gets to this while loop, it says, okay, while count equals false, it needs to run this try and except. So the first line in the try sets count equal to true, and then it asks for an input. Now if the user does input a number, then count will stay as true, as this section of code here won't be run, so then it will drop out of the while loop and it won't repeat the try and except. But if the user does input a letter, then the value error will be caught, and then this code here will be run. Now, as the count gets set back to false, that means the while loop will then run the try and except again, and ask the user for an input. So guys, that's going to be it for this video. That's some of the basics of error handling. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you another time. Bye.